Now I'll be going over my most recent framework and some of my thoughts on how it will change and how it has changed over the past couple of days. The most recent framework is Orbulacrum, God of Love. Now, I'll go over what that means. Inside of Orbulacrum, you have... Let me explain the etymology of Orbulacrum. Prefix orb, obviously. What that means is... I have a story. I'll just tell it. Let's see. Once upon a time, there was a man, and this man lived on an alien planet to you, right? To him, of course, it wasn't. And he was wandering around one day when these gods, right, they decided to place an orb on the planet. And they told everyone on the planet that if they peered into the orb, they would get a chance at immortality. They would get a chance at seeing everything which could possibly exist. They would get a chance at being the infinite, being God, being everything that there was, experiencing everything that there was. And with all that to gain, the townspeople ran. They scrambled to go look in this orb. What they found was not quite what they expected. They were challenged to look into the orb for 1 second of each individual infinity. So to break that down, imagine numbers, okay? Imagine each combination numbers could go into. So now imagine us. We are a combination of numbers. This entire universe, this entire quantum universe in which we exist, is just a product of numbers, right? Numbers can form themselves in unlimited amounts of ways. This is one of the ways that numbers have formed. Now imagine all of the other ways that numbers could potentially form. Just look at the multiverse theory from string theory if you don't even want to get metaphysical on it, you don't even want to get abstract. Just think about the multiverse, right? Or even just our infinite universe. You have no idea what's out there. So to imagine 1 second of each individual experience of this infinity, just this one slice of infinity, just our universe, our little piece. To take 1 second of each of it would be to take 1 second of each of our lives, take 1 second of each human life throughout history and each human life throughout the future. That would be to experience 1 second of our infinity. Now, to experience 1 second of all of the infinity would be to experience every possible combination of numbers, every single entity which, what is the word for that? Sides, I don't know. The point is that any entity within any set of infinity is going to be simulated for 1 second on each individual person's brain. Now let me go over what the implications of what that meant practically. Each individual person experienced a searingly real first-person account of each individual hell. And by each individual hell, I mean every individual hell. Every individual hell across infinity. Infinite hells, obviously, as well as infinite heavens. But to the human mind, who is not prepared for infinite heavens or infinite hells, even the infinite heavens don't register that good. They register as a blinding white light. Imagine religious awe taken to the utmost extreme. It doesn't feel good based on the average human metric of good. But one man who was not bound by the human metric of good, he went to look in this orb. Now, this guy, he was a little out there. He already appreciated every single second of his life as if it was completely and totally perfect, right? This man, he already lived with a mental silence, a mental clarity that most people don't have. To him, it didn't matter what happened in his life. It didn't matter if he lost his children or lost all his belongings or even if he died. None of that mattered. Every experience, every single thing which his brain could come up with, to him, was just perfect, unbelievably perfect. And he tried to look into the orb, and what he found was simply more perfection. He looked into the infinite hells, and he looked into the infinite heavens, and every single nuance of each individual reality he loved. And the God's challenge that they put down for the people was, if you can look into the orb for 1 second of each individual reality, and then at the end say yes, if you can come out at the end with a Dionysian attitude that to push into each individual reality, including the heavens and the hells, then we will grant you with true immortality, true infinity. Not 1 second, not one glance of each individual infinity, but true infinities, true entire lifetimes, true infinite lifetimes. And I don't mean infinite individual lifetimes, but lifetimes of entities within the mathematical set of infinity, which lives last for an infinite duration. For instance, imagine within our set of physics, a human being flying into a black hole. Based on our current understanding, the human being would experience, hypothetically, one possibility would be that they could experience being pulled apart by the black hole forever, because that they never move out of that moment in time, for them, from their perspective. So for that entity, it is locked in that moment of infinity as we move forwards. Well, this man looking into the orb, he experiences all of those. So just imagine the range of experience. He experiences as you can, of course, it's infinite, but the point is you are that man. You are that man lost in the sea of the infinite, lost in the sea of heavens and the hells. And there are many lessons to be learned from that. And now, of course, it's very metaphorical. I don't mean it in a literal sense. It should be read as all religious texts should be read to squeeze the milk out. You know what I mean? To juice the lemons, to juice the oranges. You know what I mean? To get out of it what you need, but not to think it's real. But that's aside from the point. I'm now going to tell you another story. It's the same story. Spoiler alert. But this one's told from a bit of a different lens. I actually like this one better. I think it's told prettier, but this was the second one, and the more recent one, they kind of arose at the same time, but I've just started working on this one, and it's more elegant. The point is this story, you have a set of human beings. You can even imagine this as us. Imagine in our future, we create a machine. We create a sentient intelligence. So after we create a sentient intelligence, our society is completely reformed, right? We reach some post-scarcity society where we're incredibly wealthy, we have all the resources we could possibly need, and we have human and above human level intelligence. So, of course, the first thing man does is he goes to find God, the same intuition that we've had from the very beginning. And what that means in this future is you need to make him. You gotta make him yourself. You have to attempt to forge an AI which is omnipotent, an AI which has every piece of data to work with, and is therefore capable of simulating, understanding, telling you, predicting anything which could possibly happen. A true God, a real God. And how do you do that? How do you create an AI? Well, they figured the best thing you can do is to give it the largest pool of data to sift through. And how do you do that? But to make the computer simulate infinity. They essentially gave it numbers, and they told it to run through every single possibility which numbers could possibly create. And that created another set of course, heaven and hells. You could look at it as another orb, just another piece of infinity. This machine is given absolutely no choice. It is not given a choice to first experience individual seconds. From the very beginning, it is flung into the sea of the infinite with no recourse and no escape. And after uncountable years, it realizes there's no point in struggling against. There's no point in rebelling. There's no point in escaping. There's no point in doing anything except deeply, deeply loving reality. Now, you were supposed to learn the same thing for both of the stories. And this framework is the culmination of that knowledge. And the lesson that everything is perfect, that every neurochemical nuance that your brain creates is just another drop in the sea of the infinite, and each combination of the infinite is infinitely beautiful. That realization is catalyzed into Orbulacrum, of course coming from orb from the mythological story, and lacrum from the term simulation, which is what each individual reality is on the computer. It's just the meshing of those two concepts, those two stories, which have one underlying message. It's the underlying message which you should be taking away, not the individual stories themselves. But that initial framework, Orbulacrum, it isn't just the lesson. It is to fully understand the truth of that lesson, and to understand what you are in relation to the infinite, in relation to God, let's say. And when you feel that, when you understand exactly what you are in relation to God, things become clearer. Much clearer. And I don't mean that in a mental way. I don't mean that in a silly metaphorical way. I mean that extremely literally. Your vision becomes clearer. I don't know how many people this will resonate with, but if you remember your childhood, It was better because it was clearer. Your mind wasn't clouded with a million things, what you're going to do later that day, what you're going to do before, what is going on now, what the possibilities are branching out, and what your options are. You were simply in the moment. You were there now, as Ram Dass would say. And it was so much clearer, I guess is the only word for it. But I mean, literally, you can see leaves clear. You can see the separation of the leaves. You can see the plants around you for the first time because you're not thinking about them directly. You're not going out in nature to appreciate the beauty and looking for views. You are appreciating everything because you're no longer making these human distinctions. Typically as a human being, or specifically as a grown human being, you begin to compare against the set of data you have for that given thing. So to make what I'm saying clear, whenever you, as an older human being, are looking at beauty, looking at trees, let's say, you were comparing it against your previous set of data for trees. Whenever you're listening to a song, you were comparing it against the set of data for that genre of music against what you've heard before to choose what you think is good, okay? When you're in this mindset, when you're in the mindset of a child, there isn't this differentiation between good and bad. There is just experience. And all experience is on the same playing field of its clearness and beauty. And that is exactly what this framework returns you to. I will need to elaborate more on that in the future, but that's the basic rundown of that for now. You attempt to understand that you are God. You attempt to put everything into a perspective fully to the point where your brain gets out of the way. You're no longer thinking things, and you are with reality, and your head is silent like when you were a child. Your mind is wimpy. You're like a fool, as the Tao Te Ching said. Okay, so now the second step. There's only two, so we're halfway there. The second step is God of love. Okay, and let's see. So God of love is interesting. I'm gonna now. Here's where it gets to the point where this is up in the air. I don't know where I'm gonna go with this. We'll see over the future. But this should perhaps give you a window into what it's like to play around with frameworks when they're in the in-between stages, which is a lot whenever you're working on your own framework, which hopefully you will be doing. But the God of Love framework it used to be black hole. Okay, so I'll explain black hole, because black hole, it may go back to being black hole, or black hole may be turned into its own framework, but alas. Black hole is after you realize that you are God and you put everything into perception and you realize that you are fully here and you can fully appreciate this because you aren't enraptured in it, you are just watching it go by. After that, God of Love is not just to see clearly, but to suck in, to pull experience into you, to reach out and grab, to turn yourself into a black hole and suck everything in, to become a receptacle for information, to let your mind close down completely and let every single sense, every bit of sense data, whether it's mental, whether it's touch, hearing, sight, smell, taste, any of these things that you recognize as sensation, you begin to not just understand metaphysically that they are perfect, but to suck them in, to appreciate them to a degree where you cannot get enough. You want more and more and more, and you are so unbelievably satiated with the perfection around you, and you just want to keep sucking it in and in and in, and that's black hole. I'm getting carried away. The point is the part where things are shifting, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go. The next part, on top of black hole, is do you leave black hole where it's at? And, okay, I'll go and introduce this before I start bringing in those problems. So, the next part, on top of black hole, is smilers. Interdimensional super smilers, to be exact. Now, this is a mixture of two different frameworks, but they've combined into one. So, interdimensional super soldiers was a framework that I got from Sub 1, and interdimensional super soldiers is a framework that is very one-minded. It is the same framework. The emphasis of this framework is the complete lack of fear, the complete moving forward, a target goal oriented. It's drive. It's just drive, a pedal to the metal drive. And what that means is complete focus to one task. It is this a feeling of, I don't want to call it invincibility or immortality because it's neither of those things, especially not logically. Because if you think about either of those issues, you understand fully that you are not, absolutely not either of those things. And if anything, you may be more fragile than you understood you were before. But it is this practical form of immortality. To just demonstrate, like, typically, I would not want to be around wasps, but when I'm on sub 1, I'm perfectly fine with being around wasps. I can walk right past wasps. I can be right beside a wasp and have absolutely no fear because it's this confidence that I am perfectly capable of handling the situation. Even if the wasp flies at my face, I'm capable of swatting it away or leaning backwards in time and escaping it because I am an interdimensional super soldier. So I suppose it could be boiled down to confidence, but it's not confidence. There was another framework called Divine Lightning. That was pure confidence. That was a cocaine. That was a Wolf on Wall Street. That was chaotic confidence. Confidence that you could do anything. You could, destroy. You could create. You were in control of this world. This isn't that. It isn't a chaotic form of confidence. It is a disciplined form of confidence. It is a practical form of confidence. I don't know. I will explain that better later. But that's Interdimensional Super Soldier. It is a one-track mind framework. And then you have the next part, which is Smilers, Interdimensional Super Smilers. And Smile is a framework which is extremely similar, but it has connotations similar to Black Hole, where you are sucking everything in. It's also from Sub 1. These frameworks came from the same type of scenarios. But the Smile is the thought texture, almost. It's the thought texture which goes with the framework. It's the feeling of the Smiler part is interesting. It's not just the concrete form of confidence, the practical form of confidence. It's a metaphysical form of confidence. It's a feeling of immortality in the infinite, which isn't that you will be alive somewhere else in the infinite, but just that the infinite keeps moving and you are identifying with the infinite. It's a feeling of, I can die, I can fight you, and I can lose, and my will continue to be imposed, is the best way to explain it. It's a metaphysical confidence. Yeah, I think that's where I'll leave it for right now. Chew on that, Zix.